Okay, so I am a huge fangirl. I am sitting here with Keri Davis Duffy, and I have been following you for years, Keri. And to be in your presence, even though it's not in person, it's via Zoom, of course, still. And I cannot wait for the day that I can actually give you a great big hug. And just thank
Too.
you, Keri, for everything you've done for our industry and just how you just give from your heart and not from your head. I mean, part of it was both, obviously, because you're so brilliant, but you really give from your heart. And there's a big, huge difference in that. So thank you for being on this podcast
Thank
today.
you. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor, and I follow you too. I'm the fangirl, and so I love being here with you. So thank you.
I said this morning, I said my day will be complete after this conversation today, and I'm doing everything I can to stay calm and collect through this whole interview without like just shouting and getting super excited. So I will try to stay zen here.
Let it out, girl.
I will try. I said try. Okay. And I know we're going to have some salon owners here live, and I just appreciate them so much for being on today, Keri, live with us. And those who aren't able to be live will be listening to our full recording. And then parts of our interviews go into our podcast, our Next Level Salon Leadership podcast that Sean Chido and I have started in the past couple of years that we're just absolutely loving. So I want to introduce you guys Keri Davis Duffy. She's the president and co-owner of Gila Root Salons Incorporated, and she's the president and co-owner of Beauty Backbone Incorporated. And I've heard bits and pieces of your story, Keri, and your bio is incredible. I could just like have 8 hours of just talking about your bio and everything that you've done. And I know that you're a national motivational speaker, and this is why I love you so much, because you motivate me, of course, and I listen to you a lot. And I can only count on one hand of people that I listen to over and over, and you're definitely one of them. Keri, can you give a little dissertation of how you got to where you are today?
Wow. I mean, I'm going to be going way back, right? I'll stick to the salon part of it. I'll stick to the beauty business part of it. Um, Although I will go back even a little farther than starting beauty school, because I really, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a veterinarian. I did not want to be a hairdresser.
Wow.
And one physiology class fixed me to not be a veterinarian. So when I was in high school, just like kind of fun fact, I would cut my friend's hair. I had no idea what I was doing. I had zero training. I had probably kitchen scissors. And I started doing a trade with my friends. Like if they would wash my car, I would cut their hair.
Wow.
And other like odds and ends. I mean, just not really thinking about it, but people would be like, will you cut my hair? I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, what am I going to get out of it? Right. It's like, so it's like so interesting how it kind of started there, and it just evolved into going to beauty school. And I started when I was really young. I started beauty school when I was 19, and I worked in my very first salon. I remember turning 21 in my very first salon, and I learned a lot in that salon because I was so young, and there were a lot of older hairdressers in there that have been doing hair 20 plus years. And I learned of what I wanted and what I didn't want really, really quickly. And I feel really blessed that I landed in that salon, because a lot of times, I don't know, your first place, it is so influential in how you view the industry, because you're looking at this industry with like a blank canvas. And there was a lot of what I didn't want, to be honest, like of how I wanted to land when I saw myself 20 years down the road. And so I think that was a motivating factor for the path that I took. And so early on, I fell in love with Paul Mitchell, and I got started actually as an educator, working with Paul Mitchell and traveling around and doing shows with Paul and Robert at the time.
Wow.
And Pamela Peretti and Stephanie Kuchelski and all of the goodies. We were all very, very young. And that salon eventually actually ended up closing. And how did I know it closed? I showed up to work one day and the doors were chained
Wow.
closed.
Wow.
And there weren't computers then, and I'm not going to age myself, Tina, but our book, our the physical book, right, that you write in was on it was in the front, laying on the stoop kind of the doors being chained. So as us hairdressers were showing up to work, we had to cut our columns out of the book to be able to
Wow.
contact our clients to like, we didn't even know where we were going. So anyhow, I was there about 3 years, and then I found out of desperation another salon that I was at for about 3 more years, just kind of building my foundation and really having to survive on my own, because I felt like I was a little bit orphaned to have to go out and figure out, like, within a day or two, like where I was going to go to land with my clients and everything. And after I was at my next salon a couple of years, I thought, um, why is it that I can't work in a place that, like, I get health care and I get paid vacation, and I like, why aren't there salons like that I like? It's like a company. Like, why are my friends working for companies and they have all these benefits, and I am just like, I'm just trying to survive out here, trying to figure it out on my own. And that's when I asked my mother if she wanted to go into business with me in 1992. And my mom, who was not in the beauty industry at all, I mean, I don't know if stupidly or naively, said to me, honey, whatever you want to do, I'll do it with you. And so we mortgaged our houses and we opened our very first business. And my mom worked the front desk and I worked the back doing hair. We had an 8-chair salon and in 1,000 square feet. And I was still, traveling, and Win and I were traveling at the time, and doing our motivational speaking and stuff like that. And so that's kind of where my real journey began. I feel.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm loving this story. First of all, you actually worked with Paul Mitchell.
Yes.
Wow. Tell a little bit of that story, because I never got to meet Paul Mitchell. So I'm a Paul Mitchell school owner, of course, but I've never met him.
Well, when I joined Paul Mitchell, I mean, Jean Bra and Paul Mitchell they were the dream team, right? And so it was just like, I will fly anywhere on my own dime and put myself up in a hotel every single weekend to be able to assist you guys. And that's what I did. And that's what the majority of us did until we got like recognized that we were human beings, like we're there, like, use us and help us too, right? And so my interactions with Paul and with Jean, I mean, my relationship with Jean carried on because she's in San Diego and I've been in San Diego, but we were assisting behind the scenes at the hair shows. And so it was just at the point where, Paul got sick, and when Paul passed, which was just traumatic for everybody. And then, I was working with Robert behind the scenes, right? And then Robert really emerged as Jean's partner. And so that was kind of that whole time that I was traveling and working with them. And when we got recognized as assets, because we would pay our own way. I mean, so I was working in the salon 40 hours a week doing clients and then paying my way to go to these shows to assist. That's what we did then.
Yeah.
When we didn't take anything for granted, right? That's like, we went after what we wanted, and it was years of that. And then we eventually ended up becoming part of the team. And so it was, it was an awesome journey.
Wow, that's incredible. I have you to thank for the foundation that you set in Paul Mitchell. And it's so true, because seeing like where they are now is just incredible. And you were part of that. It's funny because I'm doing a master class right now, and it's something I had never really seen before. But John Maxwell, he said in his book, Intentional Living, he said the highest levels of success is succession, and how well did you leave a place? And I think as salon leaders are looking at this, Keri, talk to that salon leader right now, whether they're an owner or a leader in a salon or an upcoming leader or someone that's working in a salon as a stylist. How important is it to leave it better than you found it, and why? Because I have a feeling that every place that you've left it better than you found it.
I mean, I don't know. I've always wanted people to help lift me up. And I think that being a woman in this industry, especially as a platform artist, has always been a struggle, to be honest, and to be seen, as an equal. And I don't really talk about this very much at all because I don't even want to go there with that conversation. So I just fight as hard as I can to be seen, and not intentional fighting, right? But just like making sure that we're all seen. And so I think because I always wanted that, I always wanted people to feel that, because I know how important it is for people to be seen. And so I don't know, I always, as much frustration along my journey as I did feel at times, not always, and it surely is not the leading thought in my mind, but at times, I always wanted to have a sense of empathy around how other people felt too, whether it was a salon that I was leaving to move on to. I never wanted to burn any bridges. I was well aware how small our industry is. And I talk to my team about that all the time. And I talk to owners about that all the time, that grace and empathy and forgiveness is something that we have to work on. It doesn't always come natural for me, but it is something that in my hardest moments, I just sit with myself and say, am I showing up with grace? Do I have an open heart? And can I just kind of see where somebody else is coming from in this situation? And how do I want to leave it? How do I want to be, like, what do I want to be known for? Like being an ass, or, or helping people along the way, no matter what that next step is. So I don't know. I think and I think as we mature and get older, we have that ability to make more mature decisions also, and learn from the ones that didn't work out so well.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And I know you don't want to go there. You just said it. And I think sometimes it's important to go a little bit there in that conversation. And I know we could probably spend 8 hours talking about it. It's so funny because I was just talking to my daughter, and I'm in business with my daughter too. So it's so cool to hear your story and your background with your mom, which I think is awesome. And what better person to partner with than your daughter, and I'm speaking on your mom's behalf. And so something I was talking to my daughter about, because I was watching the Olympics just a little bit, and it was interesting because I was watching the diving teams, and it's something that I hadn't seen before, Keri, and I'd love to hear in the chat box if you guys saw this as well too, those of you that are watching live right now. But I noticed that the men, after they got done diving, they were kind of stoic, and they had like this sense of like peace or confidence. And the women, after they got done, they were like really giddy and like emotional, highly emotional, and looking down. The confidence wasn't as strong there. And whatever that reason is, right? I don't know. And so many times I've had to study under the feet of men, Keri, so that I can borrow their confidence, because I too have struggled with so much self-confidence issues in my entire life, not giving away my entire story, but I too. So I was like, I need to borrow that. I need to borrow the belief and sit at the feet of male leaders. And I've partnered with male leaders as well. And it's really helped me to become the person that I am today, and being around people like you, Keri, that are strong women emotionally as well too. So can you talk about that? Because I know you coach men, salon owners, as well as women, and whatever, I think some of them are very similar, obviously, but some are not. And, so why in this business, as we look, like, what can we learn from each other, right? From men and women and leaders in that aspect. What is your thoughts on that?
Well, I've had slightly like an opposite path in that I feel because, and I don't want to say like I've had an overabundance of confidence, but I will tell you that my very first boss, what my very first boss told me is when your skill set matches your level of confidence, you'll be really good one day. So I think I always had too much, a little bit like, oh, I was overly confident. And I think how that showed up is that I wasn't afraid to use my voice. And so consequently, people maybe were nervous to talk to me because of the ripple effect maybe that I left. I didn't mean to. I didn't know that I was showing up just speaking my voice. And again, possibly, I don't know this, but if I was a different gender, it may just be normal to talk to people like that. But because I'm a female, it sometimes came off that I was a bitch or I was, really hardcore. Or so my journey has been actually to find in myself and work on that grace and the approachability for people to feel like they can approach me. Because I always said, even when I first opened my salon, I have an open door policy. It's like, you guys come and talk to me. I mean, and no one ever opened the door. I mean, even when I had my door open, I'm like, no one's coming to see me, And so I think what's been really cool is over the years, because of the ripple effect that I've left just by showing up and having a voice that I have, I've had to apologize or talk things through on the other end because I've maybe left people feeling like I was harsh, whatever that was. And as a leader, my passion has always been, no matter what happens, no matter what feedback I get, no matter how crappy it feels, I am committed to looking in the mirror and saying, what could I have done different to create a different outcome? And whether that's I didn't show up being fully authentic, whether I showed up too strong and I hurt somebody's feelings, like no matter what it was, that because I took that on and a lot of coaching from other people and therapy for a really long time after my dad passed at just 23 and doing so much self work, that you can only show up and be as strong of a leader of what's really inside. Like I can't fake having empathy. I can't fake being confident in my words. I can't fake those things. And I feel like my coaching with the owners that I work with is helping them to find their voice a lot of times, because I have this thing and I always am just like, thank you, because it's just something I got, that I feel clear in my thoughts around what is coming my way. And I then have the ability to articulate it. And I feel very blessed that I have that. And I love helping people find that, because I feel as a leader, we have to be able to not only think great thoughts, but articulate it in a way that people feel really good following us.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. You and I are the same people, to be honest with you, because that's exactly, how I've been. I'm not afraid to use my voice. I'm not afraid to talk about the hard things, but most people are. And especially women,
Yes.
And
Yes.
so let's talk about that, because, one of the things that I tell my team, Keri, and we have quite a few team leaders, of course, and many of them, rightly so, and we kind of want them to be really strong people pleasers, because they're coming into our schools and they're leading our future professionals. And if they come off too hard, right now, all of a sudden you're going to have an uproar
Yeah.
and a picketing, happening around your school, as you could only imagine, what we go through, through that process. So let's talk to the leader right now about why it's important to speak up. And I love that you said, I always said that I had an open door, and me too. And so I I had to make creative times, one-on-ones, and they had to be
Yes.
really safe. Those moments of time, I started out in coffee shops to keep it real light and fun and airy until I knew that, okay, now I can start pushing them a little bit harder. Like I know how to challenge them. I was in sports my whole life. So I have like this demeanor of pushing people really hard. And so, because I always push myself hard, right?
Yeah.
And so I have to like, okay, like you said, grace, right? And push them as far as they can go, you know, honor their journey and kind of talking myself through that process. But talk to that leader right now and how important it is not only for them to speak up and to find their voice, but also for the stylists in their business to speak up instead of just text leaving. We've seen that a lot, right? Text quitting, or just not showing up. I've heard of this. I've been coaching salon owners that their stylists are just like disappearing and they don't even know what happened to them. And so why did they not use their voice to be able to share with them what they were struggling with or what they felt that the business could do differently, right? And so can you talk a little bit about that and give advice?
I mean, that is, I feel like a very layered question, a question with layered answers, because I mean, doesn't it really start with the culture that we create, which either creates a space where people feel confident coming to a leader, whether it's their direct manager or, you know, I mean, everybody has my phone number in my company, even though I'm not their direct manager, which I have a love-hate relationship with. But I think that let me just kind of go back for a minute on that question and ask the leaders first of all, and then I want to speak to stylists that are leaders in their own company. So let's first speak to the leadership as owners and say, you know, when was the last time you had one-on-ones with people, and not just one-on-ones? And I'm working with my managers on this too, but what are the questions you're asking in the one-on-ones? And what do you call them? I just call them now meetups. I don't even say I want to have a one-on-one, right? Like I want to have a meetup, and even if it's on Zoom, the name of the Zoom meeting is my meetup with Tina, my meetup with Carla, right? And in those meetups, like if there's something you want to know, that I like to come, and with anything, I like to say, what's my intention here and how can I work backwards, right? So like, how can I work backwards in the questions that I'm going to ask in order to find out what I want to find out? And a couple of the questions that I like to ask is, what's your level of happiness? 1 through 10, like what is your happiness level, right? So for an owner, I know that sometimes it's like we want to be an ostrich and put our head in the sand, and it's like, oh my God, if I don't know anything, that means nothing's happening.
Yeah.
If you don't know anything, there's a lot happening. So it's like you better get comfortable with being uncomfortable, with knowing what issues are in the salon, so that you can work to start to heal, mend, fix, do whatever it is that needs to be done. And we have to, as leaders, to view our staff as our customers. We're going to ask customers how their experience was. And we need to get comfortable asking our team, what is your experience coming to work? I mean, I spent 2 hours the other week on relationship mending between 2 people that couldn't seem to get it together. And I felt like I needed to come in. And when my manager said, I think it's time for you to step in now. I mean, I did an intervention with 2 people because there was a little bit of this and that, a little bit of this and that with them, little tension, little competitiveness. And I am not going to compromise my culture because 2 people cannot get out of a sandbox that are adults.
Right.
And so we are only as strong as our weakest communicators in the company. And Susan Scott says in Fierce Conversations, it is every conversation you choose to not have that creates the relationship you're in right now. So if you're a leader and you're thinking about that, but also if you're a stylist and you're thinking about that, Every conversation we choose to not have that's in our mind and you may be having with someone that can't make a difference is creating the relationship that you're sitting in right now, even in my with my wife or with my child. Like, what am I willing to step up and talk about authentically with grace, and with also an understanding that everyone's coming from a different space, but it's our responsibility in life to creating an environment and be able to talk about what that could look like, whether you are a stylist or whether you're an owner. And I mean, these right now more than ever, and I know that you owners out there are feeling it. If you're stepping back instead of leaning in and you don't know what's happening under your roof, you're going to be calling me or Tina to do coaching with you. And you're like, I don't know how this happened. And I'm going to be like, really?
Mhm.
You don't know how it happened? Like, that's the problem. So it's keeping your finger on the pulse and asking the hard questions. What's your happiness factor, right? Do you see a future? And this could be someone that's been with me 5 years. It could be somebody that's been with me 15 years. Do you see things that I'm not seeing? Because it's really important for me that you are happy when you come to work. It's important for me that you feel fulfilled when you come to work. Is there something we or your management team could be doing better to make sure when you come to work that you have like a happiness factor of 10? And that, to me, those are the conversations that I want to have with people, because by finding out that information, I can like help make everybody happier. And isn't that why we opened our business? Like I said earlier, like I wanted a place not only that created benefits, but that somebody cared about me, that somebody looked at me and said, I care about the experience that you have here, and I'm going to help you to be successful. And so that's what these numbers are about. But first and foremost, what do you see that I'm not seeing? And I think because everyone shuts up when we walk into a back room or we walk into a group of people. So what do you hear that I'm not hearing? What do you see that I'm not seeing? And not in a way that you're ratting anybody out, but that I could be of service and help. And I think that's really important. And it's important as a stylist when there are things that you see
Mhm.
that could be improved upon, your owner doesn't know.
Yeah.
And if you're if you're in the habit in your life of keeping the conversations in here, because this is a life skill, and not pushing it through, to be able to share what's happening, then you're doing a disservice to yourself by operating day in and day out, like keeping secrets, because that's not even good for your cells and your soul. And you're doing a disservice to the people around you, and you're doing a disservice to your owner because they don't know. So again, I think in all of these conversations, it's how do we put ourselves in the other person's shoes and say they may not know. Even when I'm talking to one of my stylists, they may not know how they come off. So it's my job to be able to say, you may not know this, but when you do A, B, C, and D, like this is the wake that's being left on the other side, right? And I don't know, I just think I'm just right now leaning in, honing in, and asking those questions that I sometimes internally are cringing as I'm waiting for the answer,
Yeah.
because you want to show up and feel like you're doing everything right, but how do we know that we're doing it right if we don't get the feedback?
So good. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. This is really powerful. I know everybody's probably like, oh my gosh, I need this information. So let's talk. I'm stealing the meetup thing. I think that's so cool. I love the verbiage. I'm always looking for more sexier verbiage, because I'm like so bored with my corporate terminology. I was like,
Yeah,
maybe it's some
yeah.
more fun. Yeah, I need some fun words. But I love the fact that you said what's your happiness level. And that was actually something I actually pulled out a meter every time when COVID hit. We were on our stay at home for 3 months in Michigan. And every week we would still hop on Zoom, and I had a meter and everybody had to type in, how they were feeling. And I honestly believe that was what kept our whole team together during that time. And I had never done that before, Keri. And that was the first time I did that. Like, what's your happiness meter? And then I would follow up, what would it take to get you from a 4 to a 5 or a 5 to a 6?
Yeah.
Just the small shifts. What do you think it's going to take? And then when we do the following meetup, we would have that same conversation. But I love these questions. These are so good. Can you talk a little bit more, like give me a real life one-on-one that you have, and can you tie it into maybe, I love that you brought up a challenge that you had and you had to step in as the leader to mediate in this conversation. Was there a breakdown, do you think, in the meetups that the leaders were having with these two leaders? What's your thought process with that? Where did the crack, where was the crack in the foundation that caused you to have to be able to step in? What is your thoughts on that?
Well, I want to add to what you said, because I loved your meter. And I think that surveys are also, anonymous surveys are really important. And the best way, because I've done them two ways, the payroll company that we use, I've set up monthly surveys that get pushed out, but I might have 2 out of 30 people only participating. Okay. So to me, the most effective way to do a survey is when we call them salon celebrations, not staff meetings. And so when we're in our celebrations, I will text everybody the link of like a Survey Monkey, and they have to just sit there and just take it. And I tell them it's anonymous, and they just take it right there. And so if you're going to do a survey and you really want the results, if you don't really want the results, just send them an email. But if you really want the results while you are holding them hostage, send them a text message that they have to go on and complete 5 questions. And that's it. I mean, nothing big, nothing like hard. And I love that secondary question under each one. What can we do to get you, get it? If you didn't answer a 10, what would it take to get you to the next level rating, right? And so I just wanted to kind of throw that in.
Brilliant.
With respect to I've worked with, more so in this last 6 months, with my individual team than I probably have in the last probably 5 years, because there is more mental health instability right now with people than there ever has been before. And I feel like I want to be there as a support system for that. I'm working more on the visionary stuff and what things we're doing next for the company. And I'm not really involved in the one-on-ones. I mean, I go in all the time and I'm like the cheerleader and the hugger and I'm that person. But lately I have just said to my managers, like, use me also for support. And if you see something that you think I could help and contribute so that our outcome will be stronger, please, like, use me. I'm here for that. And so I first gave my managers kind of permission to, I don't want them to feel like they're bothering me on things that they would normally deal with, because we're not in normal times. So I'm going to go back to 2 scenarios that happened in this last probably 6 months, I would say, maybe even 3 months. One is that a longtime stylist of mine, was with me 9 years. There was just kind of some talk of her being unsettled and just some signs of, there's always signs. It's just whether our eyes are open, right? Just little slight signs and hearings of things. And so, I know my manager checked in to see how this person was doing, and it was like, fine, fine, fine. And to me, when I hear something once in my business that seems a little bit off, I'll just hear like a little like chiming of this. I'm like, that's interesting, And then if I hear it twice, my radar goes up, and I'm like, okay, there's something to this, because it's the same person now 2 times. And so then I launch an investigation around what this could look like. What is this looking like? What's the timeline? You know what I mean? What are you seeing? And I literally, I always say to my team, did you dig to the bottom of the well? And usually the well was not dry when they did their investigation. So I will go in and suck that baby dry, because that's how important it is for me to be able to have my finger on what's going on for somebody that doesn't lead day to day in the company. So when I do get a little like, and then I hear something 3 times and it's like all out dog with a bone. And so on the first gal that I was talking to, we sat down with her, the manager, and myself, and I said, these are the things that I'm noticing, that we're noticing. And to me, I'm just here to just like seek to understand. Like, I've known you this long, right? You've been here. You were here when you were a baby. Like you were 20 when you were here, right? You now like have been married, divorced, you had a child. I mean, we've been through a lot together, right? And so these are just things that I'm hearing and seeing, and I am just seeking to understand if there's any truth in any of it. And in my mind, I do want to seek to understand, but my leadership style is to coach people deeper into the culture or coach people out of the culture. I do not stand and waffle to see where somebody's going to land on their own. I am not like a culture like observer. I want to be a culture creator as a leader. And so we sometimes have to ask the tough questions. And so this person was very emotional and shocked, and I'm absolutely not, and I just can't believe this. And I take it at face value, and with a still interest around where it's going to land. But in a situation where I'm asking tough questions and I see a very emotional person that's maybe a little bit caught off guard, I will say, I want you to think about what we talked about. Again, I don't think that what I heard was the truth. I just am telling you what I heard. Like, I'm not holding that. But what I want you to do is think over this next week, if there's any truth in that, and where you sit inside this conversation. And in a week, I need you to make a decision around where you will land. Because if you're choosing to stay in this company, these are the behaviors that I need to see that are different. And if you're not choosing, it's also okay. Like, you get to be the creator of your own life. And I will support you, and I love you. And we've been through so much together, but it's important that you make a choice and you then express that choice to me. And so that was one, and she ended up leaving. And I was heartbroken, to be honest. I was heartbroken. And she ended up leaving. And I mean, I would rather have that happen. It was going to happen anyway, but who wants that to go on for 3 months and bring my culture down? I'm just like, I've worked my whole 30 years next year will be. I've worked so hard for 30 years to develop this culture. I'm not having it. People have come and gone over 30 years, and I know we're going to be okay. The second situation that I'll, kind of nutshell is, I had a guy working for me who still does, they both still work for me, who I've been in conversation with before because of the wake he leaves. He's very strong. If he wants something, feelings get hurt. So I'm really working with him on his communication skills. I transferred another person into that location. And so it became, so there wasn't some long-term crack. It was like, there was a little kerfuffles here and there with these two strong personalities. And there had been coaching with my leader in that location. And it just, some of the things that I was hearing, I felt like I needed from an HR perspective to jump in and make sure that we were all on the same page. And so I did what I did with the gal. I met with each of them one-on-one. And I said, my intention in this conversation is to seek to understand where you're coming from. That's how I start the conversation. And now let me ask you a few questions. So I'm digging to, and I'm not even talking much in this conversation. I just want to know, and then what happened? And then what was your experience? And if you could have any outcome at the end of this, what would it look like for you? So that was like more towards the end. And then I did it with the other one. And then I created a meeting where like it really was an intervention, but I called it a meetup. Okay.
Yeah.
And so we all, the three of us, and I said to the manager, I got this. I just want, like, it's like, I spoke to this one, I spoke to this one, I will take this off your hands and I will swing back around with you. And so I was really able to navigate the conversation with all three of us to seek to understand what it would take for them to come into work and not like each other, but respect each other.
Yeah.
Because I don't need to be even liked as a leader. I just want you to think that I'm fair and that there's respect and that we have a mutual respect.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the very final of that, I sought to understand what they needed. We created what everybody needed. They both agreed to come to this place. And then I shared what I needed them to understand about my culture. And that in this, what they were doing, their behavior, how it was impacting other people and the people around them. And so it was, I think, connecting for them to get everything out. And then they had a big listening for like what I'm not going to stand for moving forward. And so I think we all were able to understand each other and things have been great. I mean, I'm knocking on wood ever since. This was a couple of weeks ago. But again, you know, I'm 100% committed to creating strong relationships, but I'm 0% attached to whether people want to play or not.
Right. Yes. So good. And, you know, kind of circling back to the beginning when I was talking about the Olympics, you know, is like I was saying, the men divers, they were like 0% attached to what the score was on their faces, their demeanor, right? Whereas the women, they were more emotionally attached. So I was kind of noticing that shift and I'm like, whoa, wow, okay, this is good. Because I've been working on my mental resilience and my mental resilience factors and not like in the beginning, you were talking about forgiveness and not being offended. And when I get rejected and not being offended when I get criticized and really working through that process. I mean, it is a muscle that you have to work on. And this is so good. Oh my gosh. I love the fact that you and I have real life examples as coaches because we're in the trenches with our people. And it's not like we're looking from a distance from owning a salon 20 years ago.
Oh my God. I mean, because the struggle is so different right now.
It is.
And what people need is very, very different right now than it ever was. And yeah, I think that is where the relatability in both of us, because we're both speaking from these real life experiences that are happening. Like this was 2 weeks ago, you know, right? So, I mean,
every day there's something.
Every day there's something.
Constant realizations. This is so good. So Sean and I do a 6-month course and it's called the Next Level Salon Leadership. And it's basically on the 5 strategies of a healthy company. And I don't care what company that you're running, but of course we coach salon owners. And so the very first month we focus on foundation. And I want to stay on this for a second because I want to hear from you advice as far as what you're seeing now in your company. And I know I've made some shifts in our foundation as well, building our foundation. And when I say foundation, I'm really talking about culture, about leadership, about people, and about processes. And so what shifts have you made in your foundation that you have had to make? And I noticed that, and I'm with you 100%, that you talked a little bit about mental health as an issue. And one of the shifts that I've made in all of my companies, Keri, is the same thing of making sure that I am the safest person for people to come to. And I'm working super hard on this. Safety has been my word this year. And so that they know that, hey, I'm a life coach too. And I want you to know I'm available to you to life coach you. I've had more staff come to me that I'm doing one-on-one life coaching with. than ever before because
Mhm.
I've made myself more available, and it was a shift I knew I needed to step in and
Yeah.
to take. So talk a
I
little
have the
bit about those
chills.
shifts.
I have the chills around that
Yeah,
because I love that. And that actually, I just am writing that down because that I like that terminology. So I'm just taking that right
yeah.
there.
COA,
Tina,
that's
thank
what
you.
this is
Yeah,
all
I'm
about,
taking that.
right?
Yeah. Um, a couple of things that have been very present to me over this last year that we've needed to do. One is to be an over communicator,
Yeah.
overly communicative. And I mean on the small things. I mean like things that you wouldn't think you'd need to even communicate need to be communicated. Like, I mean, we do, Carla and I, my business partner and I do a Facebook Live, and I try to make them anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes every week on our company page to just overly communicate what's going on, what we're working on, what they can expect. Well, I mean, literally, and I'm working with my managers to over communicate. Like and I want to even give you an example of what's important to staff right now. Let's say there's a cabinet that's broken, a cabinet door, right? That's broken. And the staff is like, the cabinet door is broken, right? So, okay, thank you so much for telling me that I need to get a person to repair the cabinet door. And then in the morning connection the next day, I want the managers to be like, so-and-so brought up that the cabinet door is broken. And I want to let you know that I called the company. They said they were going to be out on Thursday. What you can expect from us is that cabinet is going to be fixed like, next week. I mean, I'm talking
Love it.
things like, oh, okay. So they're
Perfect.
not letting things fall apart,
Mhm.
right? Like, let me just, if we don't create the narrative will be created for us. Okay. So if I'm not in charge of the story that is being told in my own company with my staff and with the customers, then the story will be created for me and I will not be the narrator of that story. So I've been around long enough to know that those stories are real colorful if they're not coming from me. So over communicate, I would say, on little things and big things. So whatever's going on in the company, let your team know what's going on. If there's things to be excited about, don't keep it a secret until you launch it. You can do teasers and over communicate things like that for engagement and little carrots and to keep people like excited about coming to work every day. So that's one thing that's been changed. One thing that my buddy Heath Smith from Ruiz Salon said to me, this was during the pandemic and right when we were opening up and we were all like, what in God's name is going on? He said something that really spoke to me that was really hard for me, but I was like, we need to do this. And it sounds really easy, but it's like so hard because I'm such a control freak. Say yes, no matter what.
Hmm.
And I'm like, what do you mean? What does that mean for my whole company, right? I'm just like, I said, what do you mean? And I said, elaborate on that for me, because what are the boundaries around that? And he said, well, think about what people want right now. They want to come in when they want to come in. They want to be able to leave if they need to leave.
Right.
They want to take time off if they want time off. Like, as a company that's been around for 30 years, if we don't have structures in place for sustainability, which is systems around time off, systems around schedules, right? We wouldn't be here. So when he's saying to me, say yes, no matter what, I'm just like seeing like the Taj Mahal crumbling, right? And so I had to really look at like, what are we willing to, not even that anybody's asking, but what are we willing to behind the scenes? And then how can we share it so it becomes a perk and over communicate it? What can we say yes to that we've never said yes to before?
Mm.
What can we make okay so people are like, oh, wow, that's really cool. That really takes the edge off. Wow, that really makes things fun here. Things that we wouldn't have said yes to before, or we wouldn't have even thought about, or was like some system that do we even need that? Because we developed it 20 years ago. Like, is it necessary today? So it's stuff like that, that to me was a game changer, even though as I'm saying yes to like your third vacation of the year, okay, I'm like,
Yes.
really? But I'm saying yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna like, those to me are just a couple of the big things
That's
that
good.
if flexibility and schedule, but I also let my team know I want to say yes to you around your schedule, right? I have to set it up as a leader, right? I want to say yes to you. I want you to take a million vacations if you can take a million vacations. If you only want to work in the morning for 3 hours, I want you to work in the morning for 3 hours. And so the answer is yes, and not but, and what I need to do for my business so we can stay alive for another 30 years is hire more people so that from when your 9 to noon shift is over, I have somebody from noon to 8.
Yes.
Right? So I want you to know that it's okay. And I want you to also know that's what it means for us too. And so it's all of it needs to be okay. So again, it's finding a way to say yes. And these are also the things we need to do to make sure that I'm not just cutting everybody's schedule in half and then like, woohoo, isn't this just like all about the year of the yes?
Oh, I love this. The year of the yes.
The year of the yes and.
And yes,
The
and
yes,
not
yes,
but.
comma,
And.
yes, comma, and. It's the year of the yes, comma, and.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. I always love to
Okay.
draw the elephants in the room. And because I was actually listening to a salon owner not too long ago that ended up shutting their business down. And I think it was because it was like their third walkout within this past year that they lost. I think they lost every team member except for one. And so they made the decision to close down their salon. And they
Don't you just want to cry?
Yeah.
Like saying it? Oh
I was
my God.
crying with them, and I'm crying thinking about it because I know the blood, sweat, and tears that they put into this business, right? And so, and as I'm looking at the model, so I know as a salon owner that I've got to educate my team properly. And so, and I also have to be flexible into understanding, right, of why they potentially may want to be an independent contractor. Okay. But I also have the responsibility as their leader to train them in salon business. And so really sitting down with them and saying, okay, what are your dreams and goals? And, what do you have here? And let's look at this business model. And I think it's important for salon owners to train on the independent contractor business model too, Keri. And I don't know if you agree with me.
I do.
Or not, but it is kind of a lousy business plan. In fact, my husband and I just drove by a friend of ours who just shifted her whole salon into salon suites because she couldn't hold on to staff. And I've seen this over and over in Michigan. And we were looking at it. It was like, this is probably on the low end for you, but it's almost $800 to $1,000 a month. And I'm like, one chair, that's a lousy business model right there. Like, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the rent, know? And so let's talk about, like, is it really freedom that you're going to have? We had a gentleman that graduated from one of our Paul Mitchell schools, Keri, that went straight into a salon suite. And
brave.
The worst thing I could have done, because I not only ended up with a divorce, with a fight, a custody battle fight with his daughter because of the amount of hours he had to work just to pay the rent. And he found a salon of 4 chairs that was half the rent of what he was paying for in his suite. And he said, Tina, this makes more sense to be a salon owner than to be a suite owner. And so now I'm noticing, and maybe you are too, a lot of salon suite owners are coming to me and saying, hey, teach me how to open a salon. Teach me how to really be educated in this. So let's talk about that elephant in the room of what do you think salon owners, employee-based salon owners need to know through this process?
Well, my view anyway on owning suites is that you're a landlord, right? You're the business that you're in is a landlord. You're not a business owner of owning a salon with hairdressers. You're a landlord. And so if that's what you want to be, that's okay too. I mean, companies have made millions, as we see, with the suites and all the different, all the different suites coming in. So that's landlordship,
Right.
right? No matter what business it is, you're renting rooms, you're renting a space with four
Right.
walls. So I think that as business owners that own employee-based businesses, we need to know what that suite business model is.
Yes.
Right. And then we need to educate our team on what that is. And what I love to do is my ex-suite staff, they're still sweet, but they're ex-suite staff.
Better.
They become the educators.
Well, that's great.
So they speak to it, and I try to do it. I probably should do it more often, but I forget. Just like you and I are talking now, that's another thing on my list.
Yeah.
But we do it about once a year, and we go through the difference, and we do an analysis, a side-by-side analysis of what it looks like to be an independent contractor and all of the expenses associated with that. And then an example of if I made this in a month, and then, I went through all my expenses, a P&L for that, and then what it looks like being an employee, getting a check and everything that gets taken out that the company does and what you get to do. And and we do talk about the freedom factor, because that is a really big factor. When you're an independent contractor, you're running your own business. And and I know, running our own business, I already this morning had, I think, 10 text messages come in, and there is no freaking freedom in that.
No. There's no freedom.
No, I don't know, like when I'm going to wake up and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to get my coffee first and just do my reading and enjoy this moment, because I don't know when I open those emails, like, I don't know what's going to be in there. And so as an employee, I get to wake up and have my coffee and just make sure I get to work on time.
Right.
And so, I mean, you're not having to call clients back and reschedule appointments. And if you don't feel good, call every single client and figure out if this insurance is, up to date and blah, blah. So we do talk about that about once a year. And I think it's really important. Also in marketing, to do a deep dive in what the suites are marketing, because they're brilliant in their marketing and we're not.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And so in our marketing, what are they marketing? They're marketing, have your own business. And what are they marketing? That you get a drawer with like a cash drawer in it, and you get these beautiful granite countertops, and you get towels, and you get a chair, and you get this sink, right? That's like, well, of course you're going to get that, right? But they're marketing, and like they're making business ownership seem glamorous. And so what I want people to think that's glamorous is you manage, your craft. And this is our tagline: you manage your craft and we manage your business.
Wow.
And so
Yes.
we need to show up and make sure that our marketing is speaking into the listening of hairdressers that want to shine in their craft, but don't really want the business end of it. So those to me are the things that I think we need to be focusing on as owners, is the business model, but also the marketing around it. And how am I going to get staff? You're not going to get staff by just saying we have an awesome team. I mean, that's like not working anymore.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Keri, oh my gosh. Okay. One last piece of advice that I want to hear from you, because we not only do the foundation training when I was talking about the culture, leadership, people and processes, but then we focus on leadership for an entire month. We focus on communication an entire month. We focus on attitude, which I think is a big deal right now, right?
Yeah.
Mindset and attitude. And then lastly, we focus on hiring. And I believe, in my opinion, from what I've seen when I've coached salon owners through the 6-month course, Keri, is that once foundation is actually fixed, hiring gets fixed too. So talk about how you've kind of shifted and changed your hiring practices as we start to end out this webinar today.
Well, God, hiring is such a big part of the longevity of your business, because, I know so many owners that are desperate to hire, and you don't you want to hire out of inspiration, not desperation. So I do want to say that when we hire out of desperation, what we do is we just first see if there's a pulse. And then the next second step is to send them your hired letter, right?
Right.
And so that is like what we don't want to do.
Right.
But what we do want to do with respect to hiring is sit down with yourself or your leadership team and outline who you are as a company, what foundation people need to go through for onboarding and integration into your culture to set them up to win long term, and then hire people based on their willingness and excitement to join that.
Yeah.
Join that culture. That what is the onboarding process for new people? All they want to know is, when am I going to get out on the floor? So does your education program, is it laid out in stages so they can see, here's your 3-step easy. Here's in 3 steps what you're going to need to do to get out on the floor. Go through foundations, which takes this long. Go through your technical education, which takes this long. Go through your mentorship program, which takes this long. And once these 3 are accomplished, it should take this amount of time. You too will be on the floor. So make it easy, lay out everything so people are buying what you're advertising. Don't sell false hope to people that you come in and everything's going to be great and you're going to get trained. And then the training program is you hanging out with me every day while I tell you what I'm doing. Like, what is the training program? What can they expect? And have it written out and laid out so your onboarding and your communication around hiring, people are agreeing to what is actually happening in your business. And I think that to me, if I was wanting to join a company, I would really just want to know, like, what is it that's going to happen with me on my career path that I can expect to happen?
Yeah, so good. And I think you just hit the nail on the head. Like, do you have a career path? What does that look
Yes.
like? And I think
Yes.
that's what people want. And so I'm excited about that. I know you are too, Keri, because you've been doing it all along. I really believe
Yeah.
that this whole pandemic really shifted and really declared the players from the pretenders. And I know you're a big time player, and I know the people on this webinar are too. Otherwise, they wouldn't be
Yeah.
on. Like, they're
Exactly.
like, I'm playing, and I'm not messing around. So thank you for being on this podcast. 2 questions. One,
Yeah.
what's the very best way for people to get a hold of you, to hire you as a coach, to hear some of your courses that you offer?
Well, head over to beautybackbone.com. And from there, you can go under virtual courses. We have one-on-one coaching. We have a 6-month subscription of coaching. We are on Beauty Backbone Facebook Live, which we just invite everybody to join from 8 to 8:30 Pacific Standard Time, almost every Monday. We do webinars. Sign up to be, one of our part of our community. We'll send e-blasts out. And so, yeah, head over to Beauty Backbone. You can even click on contact us and email me directly and let me know what your needs are. And I'd be happy to chat.
I love it. I love your idea of getting on with your team once a week and giving them an update and to over communicate. If you were hopping on right now and giving something new to salon owners that maybe you haven't said to them before, what is it that you would say to them right now as we close out this webinar today?
I would say that the most important thing right now, as our parting kind of words, is to lean into your business right now like you never have. Mm-hmm. Like you're going to lean in at a level, even if you don't feel like there's anything to save, lean in at that level. Because when we need to save something, or we need to oh my God, we're in a panic to get things going because something went awry. Be that now before it happens. Right? And stay curious around what is happening of things that you don't know. What don't you know is the question you should be asking. What don't I know? What should I know that I don't know?
Oh, that is so good. Y'all better write that down. And thank you all of you that joined us live too. We had quite a few salon owners today, Keri. You're
Great.
amazing. I love you so much. I wish we could do this for 10 hours right
I
now
know,
and
me
I wouldn't
too.
even be tired.
Me too.
I love you. God bless you.
I
Thank
love
you
you
for being
too.
on today. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank